Today, I'm going to world build a whole continent. Let's get started. I first uploaded a photo of the map to my iPad and then used that to plan out the region before I put pen on paper. I then outlined the coastlines first, just to give myself a clear boundary for where I'm working. The continent is roughly similarly sized to Africa, and this gives me a lot of room to play around with different regions. With that done, the first thing I want to add are the mountains, because they can help me determine where the biomes are going to be in this world. I started by tracing over mountains I had already drawn for a short. My initial idea for this continent was that it would be split by this great big mountain range that goes down through the middle of it. However, I changed this because this continent is one of the two center continents in my world, and I really want it to be a centerpiece of this map. So instead of dividing this whole region, I wanted there to be some significance and interest in the region by making it so the kingdoms could interact with each other. Moving on to my next big feature of the world would be the forests. The forests can determine which areas are more wild, or which areas have more resources for people to explore. I wanted the south of this continent to be more forested than the other parts because I wanted it to be something that's more explorable, that's more intriguing, and to provide contrast to the plains and rich societies in the middle. But I did put forests around important points such as the Twin Peaks, these two big mountains. The next big important feature we need to add is the plains, these regions that are empty, but these are mainly just the places that we didn't fill in here with forests. These lands are going to have way more empires, way more people, they're easy to farm, they're much better for traversing, so they're going to be hot points of civilization. Think of the greater European plain for trade and interactions. And the final major feature I want to plan for this map is the rivers. The rivers can determine where certain biomes will be, but they also influence settlements significantly. Most settlements are going to come from rivers. Rivers originate in the mountains, so I'm always going to draw my rivers originating from a higher place and then flowing down lower to the ocean. And that's our plan done. Time to move to pencil and paper. Drafting with pencil is one of the most important stages in the mapping process. It gives me a very clear detail for where things are going to be in the final map, while still allowing me to change it, unlike the final stage, inking. I started by drawing the Anorak Mountains. These divide the northern region from the central kingdoms region. The tallest peak is Mount Bakara, sitting at 4.6 kilometers tall. These mountains are often covered in clouds and have been known to have severe storms, being very windy and obviously very dangerous to cross. Generally a very bad place to be if you're planning to travel in this world, though the views have been said to be incredible. Moving southward, we visit the Basho Mountains. The Basho Mountains are the tallest mountains by far in the central continent, dividing the central region from the more arid eastern region. These mountains are more noticeable to a traveler because they sit right near civilization and they rise very quickly from the plains, so they're very imposing, often being known as Basho's Wall. Between these two ranges sits the twin peaks of Mashur and Isiklnar. Both of these are incredibly tall mountains, and they have this weird forest around them that has remained even though the rest of the plains have all but cleared out. It's a breath of fresh wild in the middle of this industrious plain kingdom region. North of these twin peaks, our first kingdom is born, the kingdom of Shatar. Shatar is by far the largest kingdom on the full continent. They have gained most of their power via controlling other smaller provinces in a war that they waged around 100 years ago. Shatar has also acted as the main trading center of the plains, being a hub for transit between the west and the east. Next, I shall begin to fill in the smaller provincial kingdoms and cities that make up Shatar's empire and sphere of influence, such as the city-states of Mondenir, Dalosk, Phanos, and Praxos, whom together make up the kingdom of Anaxium. Though similar in heraldry, they all have their own unique history pertaining to their creation. Heading closer to the mountains, you would see the kingdom of Hikashu, which controls large regions in the shadow of the mountains. The area they control is called the Realm of Chironix, and is a huge pledge to the Shatar Empire. Moving east across the plains, I wanted to change this kind of flat, straight coastline into something more unique that would provide more space for me to work with this idea that I had. For an idea I had where we have the mountain of Tundrik. Tundrik is a dragon I talked about in one of my shorts, an ice dragon that battled a great fire dragon in the center continents, and I wanted to make sure I had space for that and to expand the desert regions of the south, because that region is very small right now. Also to expand the north and give more northern territory, as that region is incredibly small compared to every other region I have right now mapped. So this kind of extension balances more of the lands, making them more equally proportioned to each other. Speaking of the north, to the north of the Anarak Mountains is the realm of Nagdaram. This region is much less habitated than the Plains region. However, it is mainly serving of the ships that cross over in the ocean above. It's at a convenient midpoint for trade, and is thus catered to it, seeing as the much more inland regions are inhabited by dragons. Moving southward, we can finish the plains by covering the twin cities of Torasic and Norgadon, the final major player in the Shatar Empire. In creating that peninsula from before, I expanded the Basho Mountains to create this desert region called Barun. But I also named some of the farther regions of Shatar, such as Korobash and the region of Kashmar. Both of these regions are very sparsely populated, having no real center of population, aside from the twin cities. You can also see me adding the circle for the zone around the mountain of Tundrik. Tundrik is a large ice dragon that inhabits this island. He's one of those powerful dragons, and he causes a storm thousands of miles wide around the mountain. Crossing the Basho Mountains leads us over and into the desert realm of Baruin, also known as the east of the continent. Aside from Karkanan, the port city in the north, and Tal Noral, the port city in the south, there are very few settlements in this region, and it is sparsely habited, being a barren desert. Near Tal Noral is the volcano known as the Mountain of Glass, as it erupts into a desert, melting the sand around it, creating a beautiful glass shard and mirror-like presence in the sand. North across the river Akros is the Mason Plateau, from which comes the Korons River, which in turn has developed the Korons Canyon, one of the deepest and largest canyons in the entire disk. North of the river Akros sits the mountains that hold the Highland Forest, a brief oasis from the bare desert. Aside from the swamp at the base of the Akros River, there's barely anything left in the desert, aside from the occasional shrine and rolling dunes. Next we head to the south, the forested land. The main power in this region is called the Kingdom of Para-Esh, though they don't really control much of the south. The south is mainly unowned and forested. Paresh controls the majority of the farmlands in this region, having the cities of Narask, Nosar, and Shnug. Within the Creotian Mountains is the Castle of Caron, often regarded as the evil Castle of Caroline. Though the valley is desolate, the main person who lives there is known to protect the forests of the region and is known as the Green Mage. East of the mountains is known as Donnerik, a desolate desert with high winds running across the sand, allowing for people known as the Sand Sailors to drift across the desert. The rest of the peninsula is heavily wooded and is hardly traveled, aside from a few small coastal towns. Looking westward to the other side of the south, we find more forests, although they are divided by the Hasark Mountains, which sit in the middle. The southern region is heavily forested and heavily wet, known as the Wading Forest, as there is loads of swamp and dense foliage. North of this mountain range is the Valley of Deshorian, which has a notable variety of settlements, such as the Costco Tower and the settlement of Shenosir. To the farthest west is a region called Rashar. It is a border region between this continent and its sister continent in the center, and is a major point of trade, as a lot of trade that goes between them can go through this bridge specifically. So Rashar is a exception to the south, being heavily populated. And that's the main sketching done. This whole map has been mostly filled out. More details will be filled out during the inking, but for now we have a completed image for what we see here. There were some changes from what we said before, but overall this has remained remarkably similar, and I just have to give it the name. The official name is Kyrion. With this done, we can start with the next step of production, which is inking in all the lines I drew before and adding the details where I didn't last time. Thank you for watching my video. I just want to quickly interrupt while I'm drawing the border to say that only 2% of my viewers are subscribed. It would mean a lot if you could just subscribe, and it would allow me to keep making videos. Thank you though for watching this far, and I hope you enjoy the rest. Alright, so my first step after inking in the coastlines is to do names. Names go over everything else, so adding them first really is just the order you have to do it in, otherwise you might not have enough room for the names you might need to add later. My goal for this southern region was to kind of have these inner little fjords and stuff like that that indicate that there was glaciation here at some point. It's kind of the south, it's closest to the poles, and I overall really like the vibe of British Columbia and the Nordic regions that have this coastline, so I just really wanted to make sure this region was like that. I also provide justification for these forests by having these mountain ranges. So generally mountain ranges have the rain shadow effect, where winds with water or air with water tries to go over the mountains, and as it rises it dumps a lot of the water, usually causing some forested regions or just having a lot of water on one side of the mountain. But when the air gets to the other side, it doesn't have any more water, causing a desert. This is seen as the west side of the Kuroshin Mountains are very forested and very green, while the other side is a desolate desert with little water. With this peninsula done, we can move on to the western peninsula. This peninsula is much the same to the other one, except that the forests in the south of it are even wetter, seeing that they have swamps. It's almost known as like a floating forest, as there is just so much water pouring from the Hasark Mountains. And then the central region with the Valley of Dashar is still very dry somehow because of that rain shadow effect I mentioned earlier. Moving eastward and northward, we go to the desert region, which will be much faster as there is no forests here. Part of the reason I wanted to introduce deserts to this region was if it was a campaign setting, I want this island in this continent to really have a huge variety in terms of where you could play. You can go from a wet, forested land to a huge desert that you can't really see the end of. So giving players that variety is my main goal. With the desert done, we can move westward to the centerpiece of this continent, the roaring regions and central kingdoms of the plains, or Shatar. The logical and narrative choice for this big kingdom of Shatar is so to give players or DMs the chance to have corruption and this kind of citywide scandal, and I want to make sure that people can use this effectively. It also acts as like a centerpiece to this huge playable region that has a lot of people, a lot of settlements, and it really provides a centerpiece for this continent, as it is the center of the continent and a point of interest that any player or person just browsing a map may want to see. I was also careful to build the regions on the outside and periphery with as much interest and focal points as the center to make sure there's always places to explore for a player or for wandering eyes on the map, such as the regions of Brigadar and the peninsula of Korabash. With the center done, the next and final region we have to do is the north. So the north is much less habited and is incredibly small. So I'll be faint with you, it's going to be very quick, and overall this region is meant to provide something that's closer to the outdoors environment that you see in the south, but also providing you more settlements than the south, so that there's kind of a balance in between these heavily populated regions and these regions that aren't necessarily heavily populated. And that's the first inking done. So I usually go around, do a second inking just to make sure that there's a more contrast, and I usually add a lot of small and tiny details everywhere. These are little hidden Easter eggs for people to find, or just making the map feel as busy as I want it to be. I'll spare you from even more time-lapse inking, so here is the finished product in trailer form. The south is an ancient forest land, long hidden under the cover of canopy. Many a traveler is said to get lost. Some have been bewitched by the green mages, hidden deep in the wood. Those who enter often never return. Old deserts of Balnearin have claimed many lives. The desolate area is long bereft of water, and few settlements string the region. These clashing markets are home to thieves and pirates. Many venture here. Many never escape the beauty of the markets and the sea of sand. The Central Land is home to many kingdoms and many peoples, a hub of trade, farming, and expert craftsmanship. With the biggest and most bustling cities of the continent, but also some of the largest forests and mountains in the region, this whole area offers so much to explore. Do you take the city route or the political route? Or do you choose to explore the nature around the region? The North offers a peaceful yet intriguing environment. There are dragons, there are forests, there are peoples, and there is much to explore. Think of classic D&D, but with a little bit more mystery. And that's my continent that I created. If you guys like this video, please consider subscribing. Anything you do will help. Check out the store in the description, and I'll see you in my next few videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.